Good morning. Welcome to week 3 of our webinar series on advanced design concepts, where we're building a mildly complex application to handle multiple requests. We ended up with starting on the process timeline last week. We're going to pick up there again, but we're now 3 weeks into this, so perhaps a very brief review might be appropriate. Also, I just noticed that I'm not showing my name or the BP Logix logo on my camera. Now I am. So we all now we all know who I am. Hi, I'm Dale Franks from BP Logix, in case you were wondering. So let's do a little review of what we've done so far to try to catch ourselves up, since we're now 3 weeks into this. So I have a form. It's a fairly simple form. It allows us to handle multiple request types. And based on the request type that we are addressing in our process, we need to provide some different information, and our process timeline needs to do some different things. So I've got some of the information down here in separate sections. So if my request is a time off request, I have some PTO dates. If it's some sort of HR request, like I need to change my name or my address or something like that, we have that information there. If I'm submitting a complaint, I can throw in some complaint details, and I've got an exclude manager checkbox. So if my complaint is about my manager, I might want to skip them and go to someone else. So I have that. And then if I make a suggestion, I've got a suggestion details section. We're really just trying to see different things happen when I do different things on the form, and perhaps use some of this data on the form. For example, this exclude manager checkbox to determine what happens in our process timeline. So that's our form. And we'll just go ahead and, you know what? I should probably show my content list so that we can see stuff. And I want to go ahead and leave there and go take a look at our process timeline. Wanted to be sure I didn't save that. So that's why we left it via the content list. So here is our process timeline. Our process timeline and our form are already linked. Our email template is linked. That all happened whenever we created our application via a application shell template that I have in my template library folder. So a lot of this stuff was already configured for us, but last week we started on the process timeline. We talked about the approval loop, and we created the activities. Now, I had not yet gotten last week to creating the I created it, but I had not named the HR action activity. So now I have named it. I did that in the interim. And so we have 4 things that may happen as we perform our activities. First, I've got a requester resubmittal activity. I need my manager to approve. I need the department head to approve, and then we need to move it to HR for the actual action that gets taken. Obviously, all of these things are kind of HR related. So no matter what we're going to do on this request, at some point it's going to end up in HR's hands, and they're going to have to do something about it. So we'll worry about what actually it is that they do outside of the context here. We're just going to give them a task and give them an opportunity to make comments, and then they'll just do whatever it is that they do. So these are my 4 activities. I think that catches us up. So now we can start looking at each of the individual activities. So I've got that needed when there. We've got manager approval. I've got the results. Okay, well, we have to configure the result. But fine. We'll go in and begin configuring this activity, because this is the first activity in which some weird things might happen. First of all, based on what we just looked at on the form, this activity, this manager approval activity, might not even run. So if I have a complaint and I want to skip my manager and go straight to my department head to take a first look at my complaint, then I'm going to need to have a needed when activity, or I'm sorry, a needed when condition on this activity to determine when I want to skip it. And it looks like I've already done that. The exclude manager not checked. So that's when this is needed. So if it's checked, I'm going to skip. I'm sorry. I probably should have reviewed myself as to where we were. So we have our three results here: approve, resubmit, and deny. Now, in general, these are the three activities that we'll want for most of our activities. If I approve the activity, it's going to go to the next activity. If I resubmit and I select resubmit as the result, it should restart my loop. And of course, if we go back and look at my approval loop and we go to the looping tab, any child activity result contains the word resubmit. Now, I'm using contains here because it gives me a little freedom as a designer to determine exactly what the verbiage is on my result. So I could have return for resubmittal. That would contain the word resubmit, and so that would be a good result. Resubmit also works. I'm using contains, as I said, to give myself some freedom, also because equals is really picky. I tend to use contains because if you use equal, you have to have an exact match. That can cause some problems. Sometimes you might inadvertently type in a space, and so there's a trailing space that you don't know about, and your condition never matches, and you can drive yourself crazy. So resubmit helps. Although with contains, not sure if a trailing space would mess that up or not, but it gives me that freedom. And so fine, I've got resubmit, and then I've got my my close action, or I'm sorry, my deny action. And the deny result, of course, would simply exit us out of the loop. So I'm going to need these three results. And of course, if we look at our approval loop again, just to look at our looping tab, any child activity result. Oh, I wrote any child activity result contains cancel. Ah, well, that is a problem since I have the deny result. So to match this condition, because I do want to cancel the remainder of the loop, I've got to be sure that I have cancel instead of deny. Also, deny seems like a very negative term to use. So I should probably change that result from deny to cancel. Now it matches what is in my condition. That's very important to be sure that you do. I believe that the default version of this in the application itself, the application template rather, it does say deny, but I am going to want to make that cancel here. I do want to point out that it will continue to say deny until I update my timeline. And when I update my timeline, it will go ahead and change that text there from deny to cancel, but it doesn't happen immediately. Even if I close it and reopen it, I don't think it makes that change. Oh, it does make that change when I close and reopen it. So when it refreshes it, it updates my cancel. However, I want to be sure, so I'm going to go ahead and update real quick just to update that change. All right, now with each of my results, I do need some configuration. Now, because this was created off of my template, I've already got some basic stuff done here. I know what my most positive result is, which is approve. I've got my resubmit result, which is my median result. And I've got my what is now cancel result, which is my negative result. And these are already configured. I've already configured them with button colors and text colors. I've already given them button icons, and I've already set the button order on form. As I've talked about a couple of times, we always want to present the same results in the same order to all of our users. And by the way, that also covers the colors that we're going to use. You should probably have some sort of style guide for your organization that specifies colors. That way I know what color my button backgrounds and button texts should be. And your style guide should, of course, also include accessibility standards whenever we're talking about colors, so that we ensure that we use the proper colors and that those colors all have the proper color contrast between the button background and the foreground text color and whatnot. We want to be sure that our forms are all accessible. Now, some of you may notice a difference here between what you see in your version of Process Director and what I have in this particular version. If you have an older version of Process Director, you don't have this color picker. What you have instead, and let me go ahead and close this, what you have instead is this color picker that you see on the Activity tab, which is not really a color picker. It is a drop down that enables me to pick colors. Now, this is clearly a custom set of colors. There is a custom variable. It is called Workflow Colors, that enables you to just build in whatever colors you want as workflow colors to use in Process Director. Now, if you have an earlier version of Process Director, you'll see this same dropdown as the color dropdown for creating your button colors. Just so that you know, we're having an internal discussion at BP Logix about the result buttons. This is nice in that it doesn't limit me to a specific drop-down set of colors that are configured in the workflow colors vars on my custom vars file. So this is great. I have a lot of freedom. I can pick any color that I want as an implementer. I love this, not being limited to that drop-down list of colors. On the other hand, as an administrator, I might hate this because it gives my implementers too much freedom to implement what they're doing. We're currently having a discussion about trying to find a happy medium between this and requiring you to have all of these custom vars set up that specify all of these different colors, and this level of freedom, which may be an inappropriate level of freedom if you want to enforce strict branding / colors / accessibility guidelines on your implementers when building applications. I mean, you could still do it, but now you would need some sort of document that would say, okay, I can only use a green of, this color, 006603 or darker, for a green background, and then I have to, specify the use of white text, which here is FFFF as my text color, so that I have the appropriate contrast between foreground and background. I think we are looking at doing a happy medium of these two, still giving you a color picker, but also providing a list of specified colors. And I think we'll probably have to build some sort of page in IT admin for you to be able to specify your colors and branding. But this amount of freedom on first glance is a blessing for implementers, but it is a curse for administrators, especially if you want to enforce stricter standards on color selections and things like that, whether it's for branding or for accessibility purposes. So that is something we're addressing. But for right now, I think I'm on 6.1.003, but I may be on a higher version. I don't know what this has been updated to because I didn't check in the last day or so. But assuming you're on 6.1. Internally, it's 003. What you see is .3 on your UI. You're going to have this UI. Otherwise, if you're on an older version, you're going to have that drop down. So just something to keep in mind. Consistency, as I was originally saying, is the key here. I'm going to have my approve always the very first option, my deny or my cancel always the very last option. Okay, so I think we're good here. We have the three things that I want to happen on this process timeline. We've got my results and I've got my needed win so that if I check the exclude manager, this activity is not going to run. So I want to skip past that. Great. So now we move to department head approval. Now this is going to get a little more complicated in terms of how we are going to configure this. Obviously, I need some instructions here, which are missing at the moment, but you know what I'm going to do? I am going to go into not request or resubmittal. I'm going to go into manager approval, and I am going to copy these instructions, and I'm just going to go ahead and paste them into department head approval. Great. So it basically says the same thing. Please review this request for whoever submits the form, then approve, deny, or request changes. So, okay, fine. We're good on that. I don't need a needed win because this is basically going to happen for anything that I submit. I know that everything is going to go to the department head. So great. We're happy with that. On the other hand, the results are going to be a little problematic, and I'm going to need a couple of extra results here. And the results that I'm going to see are going to differ based on the particulars of the request. So let's talk about some things that we're going to want to do here. Obviously, I'm going to need an approve and a resubmit and a cancel activity. So I know I'm going to need those. So I'm going to go ahead and write those in. So we'll have approve, and I'll just write them in real fast, and then we'll figure out what we're going to do with them here in a second. Approve, resubmit, and cancel is the verbiage that we require on our result there. But now I've got this fourth result. And in fact, I'm going to probably need another result because the way that complaints are going to be handled is going to be a little bit different. Depending on the type of complaint, it may not be something that needs to go to HR at all. So I need to have some way of just skipping HR. And that's fine. I can do that via the result of this activity. I can solve this at the department level. So I need a result for that. And let me go ahead and make these smaller so that I can make these bigger and we can all see them on the screen. So these are my two activity results. So these three up here, they're standard. I'm not going to want to see them all the time. However, because the complaint is going to be tricky and I need to do some wizardry on my complaint to ensure that I have the appropriate activities. Now, in my case, this is where at the department head, it's going to get a little bit confusing because sure, I have to approve time off. And if there is an HR activity, well, I don't actually approve that. So approve is not really a good fit for that. If it's a complaint, approve is not really a good fit for that. Submit is a good fit for everything. Cancel, may be universally applicable. Everything I do, I might, want to cancel and just get out of the process. But I've got to handle that complaint, and I got to do at least two things there, and then I've got to determine when I actually get to see this approve, and perhaps even the cancel for canceling requests. Maybe I don't want to give the department head the ability to do that for some. So I've got to actually go through a little thinky pain about how my four different request types are going to work. So if it's time off, I know I'm going to have approve, resubmit, cancel. Great. Happy with that. If it's a complaint, I'm going to need these two activities, and approve and cancel, I'm probably going to need to get rid of. In fact, I'm going to need to get rid of cancel, I think, now that I think about it, on the supervisor as well, because I don't think we want to give anybody the ability to cancel a complaint. So I'm actually going to need a lot of conditions on these results to make all of this stuff work. So for a complaint, I'm going to need a couple of different activities that are unique to the complaint type. So the first one, I'm just going to choose resolved in department. And then I'm going to need another activity referred to HR. Okay, so complaints are going to be handled differently. So far, I've got 5 different activities, and I have to figure out when these activity results will be displayed based on the type of activity it is. And I'm also going to have to do this, by the way, in the supervisor activity as well. So maybe it would be better, now that I have my activity results all set here. Now I got to think, because both of these activities are going to have some wonky things happening, maybe I should go back to my manager approval and configure those results before moving on to department head approval. So in manager approval, I have approve, resubmit, and cancel. That complaint, though, is going to be really tricky, because let's say I can see the complaint. So my user has not checked the exclude manager checkbox. So as a manager, I'm going to have to do something. So I want to ensure, so I don't want to give them an approve result. So I'm afraid I'm going to need to set up a condition for this result to actually show this result button. And to do that, I'm going to need to know what my actual conditions, what my actual results, sorry, not results. I'm going to need to know what the value of the type dropdown is, the request type dropdown. And fortunately, I have I think I have a dropdown for that. Let me save what we're doing here. And we're going to do this real carefully. And the reason we're going to do this real carefully is because conditions are hard, and we can go off of the rails with conditions. Now, I was sure that I had a drop-down object that had request types, and now I'm not seeing it here. So I'm pretty sure that I had done that. I just don't remember where I stuck that dropdown. It is called ADC dropdown. Okay, that is great. ADC. So I'm just trying to, did I put it here or did I put it in drop-down objects? I did put it in drop-down objects. Okay, great. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to open this link in a new tab so that I can have my drop-down object displayed while I go look at my timeline, because I am easily confused. So I want to be sure that I get this covered properly. And finally, it shows me my ADC dropdown. So my 4 different request types: HR action, HR, complaint, C, time off is PTO, suggestion is S. You would think that would be easy to remember for me, but you would be wrong. So now we'll go into our approve, and we'll go back to our show this result button when condition. And we're going to add a condition to use the request type field. So that is request type. Request type. There it is. And so let's think about what we're doing here, about how this condition should work. I know I don't want to show up for complaint. Is there anything else that I don't want to show up for? HR action? Yeah, I don't want to approve an HR action because I can't approve an HR action. I'm going to need a new result button. I'm going to need something that is unique to HR action, that doesn't imply that I have approved it, but rather that I have been informed that it has occurred. And in fact, it might be the only button that I have if that is true. So for a complaint, again, I'm not going to approve that, so I don't want to see my approve button for a complaint. Time off? Yeah, sure. Time off, great. I'm going to approve or deny that. Usually it's going to be approved, but I am going to need an approve for that. And for suggestion, again, don't need an approval for that. So with these 4 things, I think I'm going to need 4 buttons. I'm going to need a button to review a request. And I think that is going to go for HR action. Yep. I've reviewed your complaint. Yeah, sure. I've reviewed your suggestion. Yeah, sure. Review would work for that. So my approve really is only going to work for PTO. So I forgot where I was on that particular form. I am on approve. Okay, so my approve only works for PTO. So once again, we'll pick request type. And I want the request type to equal, and since this is a dropdown, I can do this. I want it to equal time off. Okay, so I will only see my approve button whenever the time is PTO. So if the request type is PTO, I'll see that button. Now, I also, since I've done it, I also want to show you. In this particular case, since this is a drop-down object, I went ahead and used drop-down, and then from drop-down, I was able to select time off. That's probably not the easiest way to do it, because whenever you first create the condition, it just shows you this. And this still works. This is fine. I can still use PTO. And so that works fine. Equals, yeah, sure. I'm pretty sure it's going to work because I'm pretty sure that I can't mess up 3 letters. So I can go ahead and keep this equals, but even I might miss 3 letters. Again, I have the ability to do contains here. I think this is probably the fastest way of doing it, but you should be aware that whenever you have a drop-down control and you have linked a drop-down control to it, you have the ability to change this to drop-down and just pick the drop-down value from here. So that's built into the product. It's probably not the fastest way of doing it. Just going ahead and what I've done here, sort of cowboying through it this way, probably works just fine. But you should know that you have some additional options there for picking the appropriate comparator that you're going to use on the right side of the comparison for your condition. But we can use multiple ways of getting that done. Okay, great. Approve is only going to show up for a PTO. And by the way, I'm only going to be able to cancel PTO. So I'm going to need to go into cancel, and I'm going to need to show that cancel result button for only PTO as well. So once again, we'll go to request type. And I'm going to just use the contains and use the text here. That's the easiest way. And it's also the one least likely to force me to go back and troubleshoot why my equals comparator isn't working. So normally I think in this case, generally use equal. I'm going to try to cowboy my way through this a little bit simply because this is already a very lengthy series and I don't want to lengthen it by having to track down where I've messed something up and gotten some text wrong by trying to use the equal sign. So I'm doing it in the simple, most likely to not fail way so that we can just sort of go through this real quick. Resubmit, I'm going to keep. So I don't really need to change resubmit. We're pretty happy with that. I might want to ask for a resubmit for a number of reasons for almost any type of request. So that is kind of a generic one that I want to keep. So we're good with that, but I do need a different result. I do need to add a fourth result, which is just going to be reviewed. And I have to set some options for reviewed. In fact, I'm going to need to go back and reset several options here. Button order on form, as we've talked about many times, is important. So I need to figure out where this goes in. Is reviewed a positive? Yes, it is. I'm only going to look at it. I'm not going to do anything negative. I'm going to have to count this as a positive result. So obviously, I want review to appear before resubmit. Now, unfortunately, all of these options are already numbered. Indeed, they were numbered in the template itself when I created this. So I am going to have to do some renumbering here to ensure that everything falls into the correct order, right? So resubmit can no longer be 2, it's going to be 3. And cancel is going to move from 3 to 4. And reviewed is going to remove from 1 to 2. So I will see the reviewed button, and I need to put in a condition here because I don't want to have the same positive option. I don't want to see both approved and reviewed. So I got to think about, when does this show up? Well, obviously it's going to show up anytime it is not PTO. So, and it becomes still fairly simple to do this. I'll just go request type. And in this case, I will choose not greater than or less than PTO. And what this should give me is a mutually exclusive positive result. If it is a PTO request, then I will see the approve button. If it is not a PTO request, then I should see the reviewed button. So 3 of my request types will show me reviewed for my supervisor because the supervisor really can't approve or deny, a suggestion. So now I should have mutually exclusive buttons here. So I'm going to go ahead and close this real quick, and I'm going to do an update. And I'm doing that so that when I go back to manager approval, I have a approve, reviewed, resubmit, and cancel. All of them will have their own particular times when they show up. Now, obviously, all of this has to be tested, and we'll talk about testing a little bit later at the end whenever we get this stuff built and we can actually see whether it works or not. Still have some configuration I need to do on my reviewed result. I have not picked an icon. I haven't picked background colors or foreground colors. You do want to pick colors. You don't want to leave the default button color. I know I do it a lot simply because it's not directly relevant to what we're talking about in a particular webinar. So I tend not to configure them. So if you go back and look at some of the webinars, you can see a lot of gray buttons because I'm just sort of making them on the fly. And what we're trying to do is test something unrelated to the visual aspect of building a form. But now we are building a form and we do need to pay attention to the visual aspect. And the problem with the default colors is that the HTML default colors are just not accessibility compliant. They have a gray background on the button, and the default text color is a darker gray. It does not provide the appropriate 4.5:1 contrast ratio between foreground and background. So you need to configure buttons. You don't have to put icons on it. That's just something I do. But you do need to set that button background color and that button foreground color. So I am going to go ahead and pick an icon just because I always pick an icon. And I'm not sure that I like that particular color. I think I'll probably switch over to a white icon because I'm going to have a dark background color. This is going to be the reviewed icon. I'm not sure what icon I would put for reviewed. So I'm just going to throw in the information icon that lets me know I've looked at it. I'm going to set the button background color to, and again, this gets us to what we were talking about a little bit earlier. I want to set my button background color to an appropriate color. Now, as it happens, I happen to know a lot of hexadecimal colors, especially the ones that are associated with BP Logics. So I do want to use something that is close to our steel blue color. That color is not quite dark enough to be accessible at less than 18-point text size. It's right on the edge, so I'm just going to make it a little darker. So it's a little darker than our standard color. And it's great having all this freedom, but honestly, it would be even greater to have a list here of items to pick from of standardized colors, which, as I said earlier, is what we're talking about, providing in the UI in a future version of the product. So this button is going to have a sort of a dark steel blue background. It's going to have white text, and it's going to have the white informational icon. When do I want to see this? Well, we already set that up when it's a request type other than PTO. My resubmit should always show up because I can always ask for a resubmit, and cancel should only show up if it is a PTO request. So approve again only shows up for PTO. All right, this should give me the 4 result buttons that I need, and different result buttons will appear at different times. Before I move on to doing the same thing for my my department director and give him his 5 things, which we'll be able to go through, I think, a little faster, I do want to test this. I actually want to see how this works and whether all of the settings that I have here. So I'm going to want to look for my buttons. I want the buttons to appear when I want them to appear. And I also want to know if I'm going to skip this activity, if it's a complaint, and I decide to skip it. So this is where testing does get a little bit tedious, but it is super important because now I'm going to have to run 4 different request types. Actually, I'm going to have to run 5 different requests with 4 different request types. So I'm going to need to create 5 iterations of this form and submit them to see what happens at the manager approval activity. So we're just going to have to go through and start creating these. So the first thing we're going to go and do is HR action. I've got a couple of different actions here. I'm not even going to fill this out. I'm just going to go with change name. By the way, it's one of the reasons why I didn't make these fields required, so that I could easily go in here and submit forms for the webinar. So we're going to submit it. Now, all of the activities are currently assigned to me. So it's going to send everything back to me. Okay, great. I am in manager approval, which I expected. And I have the appropriate buttons. This is a HR action. I can't do anything as the manager. The only thing I can really do is ask the user to resubmit it. In fact, what happens if I do that? But I do see the buttons. So let's say I hit resubmit. Where does it go? Okay, it goes back to me. It now goes to requester resubmittal. That's working the way that I want it to work. Pretty happy so far. I can look at my routing slip down here at the bottom. I can see what happened. Resubmit was what happened. It went to request a resubmittal, which is back to me again, obviously. The only thing that I can do is either cancel my request, which is going to get out of it completely, or I can resend the request, which should restart the approval loop, take me back to manager approval. I get reviewed and resubmit. I know resubmit works. Resend request obviously worked. So I have now reviewed this request, and I'm going to click the button. That should take me to department head approval. That is where it took me. And then on department head approval, I have all of these ugly, ugly default buttons. Remember when I was saying default buttons weren't accessibility compliant? That's why they aren't. So now I've got these 5 results that I need to figure out here. For the moment, though, we're going to go ahead and hit cancel and get out of this activity. We're going to cancel that workflow. Now I got to run it again. So the first thing we picked was HR action. Now let's select complaint. Now we're going to have to submit complaint twice. So I'm going to go ahead and I am not going to click the exclude manager. So this should go to my supervisor when I submit it. I submit it. It does go to manager approval, and I do get my reviewed and my resubmit. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm just going to go ahead and hit resubmit, and then I'm going to cancel as the end user. Okay, great. So that worked exactly the way the previous request type did. I know that that activity is working fine. Now I need to submit a complaint where I do, in fact, exclude the manager. So we'll have complaint. We will click exclude manager. We will submit it. What should happen is I should go to department head approval, which is exactly what I did. Department head approval is fine. So far, so good. My results are showing up the way that I want them to show up. So now we need to submit instance number 3, which is a time off deal. And so we will just pick some time off. That's 3 days of time. As we did back in week 1, we see our calculations for PTO days and PTO hours seem to be working fine. I can submit it. Now I can go to my manager approval. I have approve, resubmit, and cancel. That's exactly what I expect to see. This is great. It's working the way that it is supposed to work. And if I hit cancel, it should just cancel out of my activity. Great. So now we only have one more type to run, and that will be our suggestion request. And there's a date here. I don't necessarily even have to figure it out. I can hit submit. Goes to manager approval. Good. We're working fine. Let's go back, look at our button, reviewed, and resubmit. Okay, great. A little tedious to test this because it requires, 5 different form submissions to work, but we managed to do it. It worked fine. We're now pretty confident that our supervisor approval activity is now appropriately configured, and we can move on to the department head approval, where we're going to do a couple of little different things. Some will be similar. Some are going to be a little bit different. So for department head approval, it gets a little bit complex. Obviously, cancel and approve are going to have to work a little bit differently. This resolved in department and referred to HR are going to have to work a little bit differently. So, and we also need another result for the I've reviewed it, because if it's an HR request, we're not going to do anything other than review it. So I'm going to need an activity result for reviewed. So now my result set is a little complicated. I'm going to need, obviously, the appropriate conditions to show different results at different times for different activities. Resubmit, I always want to see, so at least I don't have to worry about that. I guess the first resolved in department only for complaints, approve only for PTO. So we have to go through and figure all of these conditions out and set them. And then guess what? Got to test them again. We also have to figure out what is the most positive and the most negative. Well, I'm always going to assume that approve is our most positive one. And so we're going to give this a button order of 1 on the form. I also need to do all of my other configuration appropriately. So please bear with me while I also do my button configuration. This is approved, so I'm going to give it a checkbox there. The button icon is going to be white. Approve, it's the going to be green, so I'm going to pick an appropriately dark green color. Well, I didn't pick the color. I just played with the color. So once again, let's pick an appropriately dark green color and hit apply. We'll set our button text color just to white and set apply. And so now I've got my first item. Approve will show up as item 1. Now, technically, resolved in department and referred to HR are positive results as well, because I'm not going to be able to cancel them. So I am going to set referred to HR and resolved in department. I think it's more positive if you resolve it in the department and it's not something that needs to be referred to HR. So I'm going to set resolved in department to button order 2. And once again, I am going to set this up, and I'll consider this a positive result. So I'll just use the check again. And since, again, this is a positive result, I'm going to use some darkish green color. I forgot what color I chose last time. And then we'll use white for the button color. So resolved in department, that's good. If it's got to be referred to HR, it's not something I can resolve in the department. So it's not really a positive, and technically it's not negative either. It is more positive than requesting a resubmittal. So I think if it's referred to HR, that needs to be button order number 3. And then, of course, we're going to have to configure all of the stuff here. So once again, we'll go with white there. If I'm going to refer it to HR, I think of the checks that I have here, because I like using the same sort of buttons, icons. I'm just going to give it a plus icon. It means somebody else has to handle this. I'm going to give it the plus icon. Once again, I am going to set the button color as, let's say 528 BBC, which is not really the color that I want. I want something a little darker than that. So I'll just pick something of a little darker shade. I'll hit apply there, and I will set the button text as always to white. And so I have those 3 buttons. Now at this point, I'm a little confused. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and close, and I'm going to update and then reopen department head approval. That gives me a little better idea of where we are. Okay, 1, 2, and 3. So I've got those buttons. Then I've got my cancel, which is always going to be last. That's going to be simple. Cancel is always last. If I have 6 buttons, then this needs to be button number 6. So button number 6, and I'm going to give it the X icon in white. So where's that X icon? There it is. And I'm going to make my button color some dark red color, and the button text color again, it's just going to be white for simplicity's sake, and cancel will always be last. So great. I'm happy with that. In fact, it's going to, yeah, I'm going to have to resave again. All right. So resubmit and reviewed. Okay. Reviewed is neither positive nor negative. So I think just trying to find a button order, I'm going to stick this around button order number 4, and it is the reviewed. I kind of want to give it that blue background color, I guess. So we're just going to go back here. We'll pick my information icon, my little eye, and we will set my button color to some form of steel blue, text color again to white. And this will be option number 4, which means that resubmit is going to be option number 5 in order. And for resubmit, we're just going to go with our black and yellow color scheme. So I'll pick my exclamation icon. I will set my button background color to, well, this could be easier to pick, couldn't it? I will set it to some yellowish color, and my button text color, we'll just go all the way to black and set that to black. And so now all of my buttons should have the proper order. Just to ensure, we're going to go back and we're going to do a quick update. And we're going to do department head approval. So approve, obviously the most positive, resolved in department or referred to HR. So that's going to be complaint results, and they'll only show up for a complaint. Reviewed will show up for either a suggestion or an HR action. Resubmit for everything, and we'll leave cancel for everything just to give me an easy way out of the application. I probably am going to leave cancel in for the department head anyway. I don't know. We'll leave it in. If nothing else, it'll make it easy for me to cancel out of the process when we're doing our testing. So we have to set our conditions when we're going to see these different results. They're going to be very similar to what we just did. Obviously, we're always going to look at the request type and see what we're doing in the request type. So in this case, it'll be request type. Okay. That is strange. Okay, yeah, there it appeared. Okay, never seen that before. Request type again. Where were we? Request type. Okay. And that's going to be PTO, obviously. So great. Resolved in department. Only going to see that whenever it is a complaint. So we are going to set our show this result button when, and again, request type. I believe complaint is C for its value. Request type. I must be getting old because this text in these drop downs is getting a little harder to read. So request type should be C, and referred to HR will be the same thing. Show this result button when request type equals C. And by the way, we're going to do something a little special here. If I hit resolved in department for a request instead of referred to HR, I want to skip the HR activity potentially. So if I'm going to resolve something in the department, I'm going to skip the HR action activity. So the HR action activity may only be, fully accessible for 3 different types of requests, but you should know that that is coming when we move on to our next activity. Reviewed. Okay, now it's going to get a little bit more complicated. I don't want to see reviewed if it is a complaint, and I don't want to see it if it is a time off. So I'm going to need to add a couple of OR conditions here. So it needs to be if the request type is either, now I've forgotten which one I was doing, reviewed. Right. So this needs to be request type for a suggestion, or needs to be a request type of complaint HR action. Because if it's HR action, I can only review it. HR has to actually make the determination. So I've got an or condition here. So if it's either a suggestion, which will have a value of S in the request type dropdown, or if it is an HR action request, which will be HR, then I just want to see my reviewed button. Resubmit, don't want to mess with. We'll see the resubmit all the time. Cancel, again, we'll keep this all the time, although I think normally I would only show this result button for a PTO request. And otherwise, we'd cancel it. You know what? Let's just set the condition. Let's just build it the way it's supposed to be built. And we'll have the inconvenience of having to cancel it at the HR level, except HR is not going to get the ability to cancel anything, as we'll see. So request type, that's what I'm looking for. And for here, we're looking for PTO again. Okay, so this activity is always going to run. This is the only activity in our process timeline, by the way, that is going to run for every request. The department head is going to see everything that goes through on one of these request types. He may, in the specific case of a complaint, solve it internally, in which case it won't go to HR. And that is the one use case in which HR will not be required to perform some sort of HR action. Then for the supervisor activity, well, that's going to run unless the end user says, no, I don't want the supervisor to see this, in which case it doesn't run. And then, of course, resubmitter activity or resubmittal, whatever it is, submitter, request or resubmittal, whatever the name of it is, that's only going to run if somebody requests a resubmittal. So we have some complex stuff happening here with results and how this is going to run and where we are going to end up with at the end of this whole process. But now we got to hit update, or actually, okay. We got to save our changes because guess what? We got to test all this again. So let's test it again. I should probably hit the run button. We're going to start right from the beginning. We're going to select HR action and we'll change my name and we'll submit it. That will take us to supervisor activity or manager activity. They will review that request. This will then go to the department head approval. Department head will be able to review the request or request a resubmittal. That's exactly what we wanted. So we're going to hit reviewed, which will take us to our HR action, which we haven't configured yet. I'm going to go ahead and hit complete. That will stop that. Okay, great. So now we go to our second run through. Now, the nice thing is we only have to run through this 4 times because there's only 4 scenarios, because everything goes to the, and I will go ahead and hit exclude manager here so I can get straight to the department head approval, resolved in department, and referred to HR. Okay, well, at the moment, everything is going to go to HR, so it doesn't really matter what I click here. So I'm going to click resolved in department. It's going to take us to the HR activity because I haven't configured it yet, but great. We're seeing the buttons that we want to see, and that's all we care about for the moment. So run through 3 on this bad boy. We're going to pick time off. And I have to pick my time off times and days, which on a normal form would be required, or I couldn't submit the time off. So that goes to my supervisor. We know that that's what we're supposed to see. So we have approve. And then we have approve, resubmit, and cancel right here for our manager. Okay, that's what we're supposed to see. So we'll approve that. And then we go to HR for HR action and we'll complete it. Okay, 4th and final form submission to be sure that things are working the way that we want them to work. We are going to input a suggestion. We're going to submit that, reviewed by our manager and reviewed by our department head. So we're seeing the buttons we're supposed to see. And that takes us to HR, and we're happy with just our complete button for the moment. All right, that testing works. So now we've gotten through our first activities. All we have to do now is address the last activity, HR action. Now, as I said, HR action is not going to take place if it is a complaint and that complaint was resolved in the department. In fact, let's go back to department head approval. Resolved in department. You know what? I've got that great word department right there. I'm going to use that in a condition. In fact, in the needed when condition for HR action, the one use case when HR action does not fire is when the timeline activity result for department head approval contains the word department. So in this one specific case, I should skip right past my HR action and go straight to the result notification activity, which, considering that it's 11 o'clock, probably not an activity we're going to get to until next week. This is probably gonna go out for another week or so because we've still got the email notification that will go out with the result notification and how to configure that and what it is supposed to say. So probably are not gonna. I'm pretty sure we're not going to complete this series this week. All right, so let's go to HR action again. Activity result, department head approval contains department. Great. So now I know that if that is true, then this activity is not going to run. And by the way, I don't have to make a more complex condition than this because the only condition under which a result for department head approval will actually contain the word department is if A, it is a complaint, and B, the supervisor has said, I'm solving it here. So I don't have to check to see what the request type is. That button simply won't show up unless the request type is complaint anyway. So this makes building this condition a lot easier. The only thing I really have to check, because of all the other conditions that are applied on that particular result button, is whether the result contains department. So I'm pretty happy with that. Not happy with some other things. HR needs some instructions. I'll just give them some. Perform the appropriate HR action for this request, because I don't know what the specific action is. I've got to be really generic here because it could be time off, which means I got to do one thing. It could be a complaint, which means I got to do something else. Who knows what it is? So I can only say perform the appropriate HR action, but that's good enough. That's what I need. Not setting any participants here. although uh, in a real application we would. But we do need to add results. Actually, we need to add a single result. HR action complete. That's going to be our only result. Sure, we'll set the button order as 1. And we'll go ahead and configure the buttons as always, just to be sure we're not using the default color. Sure, we'll just pick the checkbox. And once again, we'll pick a darkish greenish color, and we'll pick a white text. Great. We're happy. There is a couple of things that we're going to need to do in addition to this. One of which is, no matter what happens, we are going to want to require signature comments from HR. We are going to want to know what HR's resolution for this particular request is. And they're going to have to tell us in a signature comments field. So we have a signature comments field on the form. We haven't done much with it, but we are now going to require it for this result. It's the only result HR can give, which means that HR will always have to provide signature comments that inform us as to what HR activity occurred. What I want are the final disposition of this request, no matter where it is disposed. Now, as it happens, back in department head approval, we're disposing of this request, if it is a complaint, by resolving it in the department. I'm going to want to know exactly what the department head did if he's going to take the responsibility for resolving that complaint without involving HR. So I'm going to need to go back to department head approval, and I'm going to need to look at that resolved in department activity, and I am going to need to require signature comments for that. In fact, there's a couple of different things I might want to require signature comments for. If you're going to cancel the activity, you know what? I think I'm going to make you tell me why you're canceling that activity. Most of the time, canceling is happening in the context of a time off request. If you're going to cancel a time off request, I need to know why you're doing that. So I'm going to require signature comments for that as well. Resubmit. I'm not going to require signature comments, although if you are going to force a resubmit on somebody, maybe you should tell them why. Reviewed, comments are going to be optional. Referred to HR, comments optional. Because remember, every comment that you make in the signature comments field is public. It becomes part of the record, and everybody who can see this form instance will ultimately be able to see it and access what you've done. Approval, well, I don't need to explain myself if I approve, so I guess fine. We're good with just requiring signature comments for resolved in department and cancel. And by the way, while we're at it, we might as well go back to manager approval and force them to give us signature comments if they decide to hit cancel as well. So now I can require many different signature comments off of my participants in this particular activity. Request or resubmittal. Well, look, all you're doing is resending the request or you're canceling it. Do I want to force you to tell me why you're canceling your activity or your request? Do I care? I don't know. Probably not. I want to know why my management is doing stuff. If you decide I don't want to do this anymore, it's none of my business why you've decided you're going to cancel your request. That's up to you. I'm not going to demand an explanation from you. Finally, we get to the result notification. There is not much that I have to worry about here. It's configured already. It's a notify activity. Dependence is already set. It happens whenever the approval loop completes, which I probably should explain. It's always going to occur And I don't even have an email template set because the email template is set in the process timeline. So I don't really have some configuration here. I think it is important to point out that this under the new UI, by the way, notice that this is a diamond icon instead of the rounded Gantt bar. And the reason it's an icon is because result notifications take no time. So, for example, set request number and result notification are both set to diamonds because they take no time. We took that from, well, the way that you do a Gantt chart in the normal course of events. Events that take no time are generally milestones in a project. For us, milestones, as we're about to talk about, are quite different. But the concept is that activities that take place on a timeline, but that take no actual time, are generally denoted in a Gantt chart with the diamond shape. So that's why that shape has been changed. In previous versions of the product, those activities would either show up as a one-day activity, which was misleading, or they would show up as a tiny line of a bar that was extraordinarily difficult to click on with your mouse. So by imposing this diamond icon there, we've got the best of both worlds. Also, I want you to note what this is dependent on. This activity is dependent on the approval loop parent activity. Remember, parent activities, whenever they start, automatically start their first child activity, which in this case is request a resubmittal, which obviously gets skipped and it goes straight to manager approval. And parent activities end automatically when their last child activity ends. We don't, therefore, set dependencies for subsequent activities as dependencies on one of the child activities. So result notification is dependent on approval loop to end. It is not dependent on HR action to end. That's not how dependencies, whenever you have parent activities, work. Subsequent activities should be dependent on the parent activity, not one of the child activities. That's a general rule of thumb. It's not a requirement, and we don't enforce it on you. And in fact, there may be times when you are using parent activities, not as loops, but just as organizational methods in your process timeline. And there is, on occasion, some specific activity inside one parent that will prompt a different activity in another parent. For example, let's say that I'm doing an onboarding activity, right? So I'm going to onboard a new employee. And one of the things that has to happen, several things have to happen, right? So my facilities people have to give them an office or a cubicle and the appropriate office furniture. And my IT people have to supply them with computers and whatnot so that they can do their job. So both of those different types of activities are being run by two different departments, and they aren't really coordinating with each other and with each other, talking to each other. They're just all doing their thing. But here's the thing, I can't install a computer at this guy's desk if facility hasn't given them a desk. So in my process timeline, facilities might have their own section of the process timeline, and IT might have their own section down here of the process timeline, and they don't really talk to each other, except I can't issue a computer and set it up on this guy's desk activity until after facilities have completed the give this guy a desk activity. My IT people can't just go in, see an empty office, and just toss a PC into the corner and plug it in and say, well, good luck with that, and walk out. Activities do sometimes have to happen in a certain order. So it is possible across loops where I have to ensure that an activity in, parent activity 1 is complete before I kick off an activity in, parent activity group 2. But while those cases exist, as a general rule of thumb, we make activities dependent on the parent activity rather than on any of the child activities that occur. So I just gave you a long explanation of a use case where that might not be true. However, in most cases, it is true. And it's the easiest way to do it. Also, it gives you the freedom of being able to go inside your approval loop, make changes, add new activities, remove activities, and it doesn't matter because the parent activity will always expand or contract to include any new activities that you put in or existing activities that you delete. And if you ensure that your dependency for subsequent activities is set on the parent, then you can make any changes like in these 4 activities here. I can do anything I want with them. It does not affect my dependency chain in my process timeline because I've now given myself the freedom as an implementer to add or remove anything I need from this approval loop activity, this parent activity. And no matter what I do, it doesn't matter because my result notification is always dependent on the parent. My result notification looks pretty good, by the way. So I'm super happy with that. We're just going to hit OK. And by the way, I don't even want to look at my email whenever I get out of this webinar and I see all of the tests that I've run, because guess what? We're running tests again. We want to be sure this works. Now, we know it largely works. What we really need to test here is the complaint. So we are going to have to run 2 instances of the complaint. So we're going to set it to complaint. We are going to exclude manager just to make it a little faster. So I'll take it straight to department head. I have my 2 options, resolved in department and referred to HR. If I click referred to HR, it should actually take me to the HR activity, which it did not. So this is why testing is important. Now I'm super curious. If I run it again, I didn't want that. I wanted complaint. And again, we'll exclude manager just to make this faster. And I hit resolved in department. I must enter a comment to complete this task. Okay, well, at least I know that works. And this sent me to HR action. So it looks like whatever I've done exactly the opposite of what I wanted to do. HR always requires comments. Okay, so again, testing important. Let's go back to our timeline and let's see how we mess this up. So department head approval. Wait a second. That's not where we want to go. HR action. Needed when? It is not needed when department head approval contains department. That's when it's not needed. I have done the exact opposite of what I wanted to do, because the result that makes me need this activity to run is whenever department head approval contains the word HR. So I did the exact opposite. Now let me be sure that on the result, it does contain the word HR because the actual result is referred to HR. Great. Now it should work, but of course, we have to test it again to be sure. So let's run our test. I know this kind of testing is tedious, and I'm certainly aware how tedious it might be as an audience member, but we're actually doing what you should be doing whenever you start developing these applications to be sure that they work right the first time. So testing is probably the least fun bit of creating an application, but great, we did get out of our application. So we didn't do our HR activity. So this time, we're once again going to do a complaint. Once again, going to exclude manager. We know that works. And this time we're going to refer it to HR. And we should go to the HR action activity. HR should be required to add their comments. And now the HR action is complete. Okay, great. I've got a form. I got a process timeline. Pretty happy with how things are going so far. Now I need to do some more stuff on the timeline. We need some milestones. Now, we did some milestones on the form way back in March. I have a single form event, which is if the anyone makes this form editable during the review process, I want to know who did it and when. So I have this milestone set up so that, as you may remember, back in week 1, we set up the form so that in general, the form is not editable after the initial submission. There are the approver sections that are still editable, and an approver has a checkbox to make the entire form editable. When they do, I want to see that milestone work. Now, we did that. We tested that milestone. We know that it worked. Now I want to add some milestones in on my process timeline as well. And obviously these milestones need to be recorded in the journal control that's on the form. And to do that, I need to be sure that I give the milestones I'm about to create the appropriate milestone group. This gets tricky. Remember, milestone groups are just text. And so any sort of text mistake that I made, so if I hit, 241 and then I accidentally hit, well, in this case, QW, ADC 24Q is not ADC 24. So I'm going to do the smart thing. I'm going to copy my milestone group because on my form is already set. The journal control of my form is already set to look at this milestone group for all of the milestones. So I just need to set these milestone groups up and use the same milestone groups on my process as I did on my form. So I'm just going to go ahead and paste that in there. So now I think the milestones that I choose here are going to be largely arbitrary. Simply because we're trying to just show that the milestones work. We're not, in general, trying to do a whole bunch of stuff with milestones. I have a lot of different triggers, and they are a different type of trigger than I have on the form because they're obviously related to either the process or related to attachments that are here. I think for my case, we're just going to have activity completed. Now, it's important to remember that if I were to choose activity completed as a milestone, by default, that means that this milestone is going to kick off after every activity completes, which, I might not want it to do. So let's just collect a milestone for when I want to have the user resubmit. And I want a milestone for user resubmittal. And I'll call it user resubmittal. And I'll give it an icon because I like giving icons to things. So we'll use a nice purple color. And I thought I had easily accessible, and it turns out that it was a pair of headphones. I thought I had like a resubmit or a return, one of those little circular arrows or an arrow with a circular tail. That's what I'm looking for. That is good enough right there, 1737. So that is my user resubmittal. And I'm going to throw in a journal entry here. And I think I want to make it a little more informative. I want to know who did it and when. So the trouble with activity users complete, I was going to put activity users complete. Um, and but then you have to specify the activity, and this can happen in any activity. I'd have to work this out as to how to figure out how to pick a particular user who completed the activity. I know it is only going to fire if the activity result is resubmit. And I've got to set up a fairly complex condition for that. You know what? Let's just make a simple message. The request was returned for resubmission on, and we'll just do cur date time. Now, at least let me know when it happened. On cur date time. And now I have to add a condition. So I hit request for resubmittal. I'm trying to figure out how to make my life a little easier here. I want a milestone that kicks off on a resubmittal. Now, as I said earlier, and I often say, jokingly, although it's true, conditions are hard. What I've done is I've set it on activity completed. Now, remember, that means that this milestone is going to fire every time an activity has completed. And if I keep it set like that, then what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to add two conditions here because I'm going to have to test two specific activities, right? I'm going to need to test. Actually, I don't need form field. I need activity result. So timeline activity result for manager approval contains resubmit, or if the activity result, timeline activity result, timeline activity, and this time I need department head approval. And again, I'm going to hit contains resubmit. Now, this should work, and it should work fine. However, I think I have an easier solution. So now let's talk about options for conditions, because conditions can be complex. I can do this, and this should work, because this should always be evaluated in the context of my of whatever current iteration of the parent activity loop is running. Now, I can do this, but I think there's a simpler way. Because by default, the result of a parent activity is always the result of the last completed child activity, which allows me to cheat a little bit. I can actually set the activity result not for manager approval, but for approval loop, which means if the very last activity that I completed was whatever it was, manager approval or department head approval, and it was resubmit, that should set my activity result for my parent activity as resubmit. Great. That makes it easier for me to set up how I want this to work. We actually could have tested the previous one, and I forgot because I wanted to do this explanation. Let's do a quick test. This should work for me. Now, by the way, this won't always work. This should work for me with the default configuration, because there is a little bit of trickery here on parent activities. I should have just gone to the parent activity, and I have to try to remember where it is. And I rarely set it to right there. Set activity result to a list of all children or user results. This can trip you up because it changes how the activity result is recorded for the parent activity. If you check this box, your parent activity's results becomes a comma-separated list of all of the results of the child activities in the current iteration. There are times when you want to do this. There are some some mildly complex use cases where you would rather have that comma-separated list and get a list of everything that happened, all of the current results, rather than just the current result of the just completed activity, whatever the last completed activity was. So with my configuration set to the default configuration, as long as that's not checked, then the condition that I have set for this, I didn't do anything, so I'm happy to leave, for this particular configuration works. Now notice I set it for activity completed. There may be another way of doing this. So just to show you, there are a couple of different ways there may be a couple of ways to skin a cat. I have another idea. I want to be sure that it works. And I want to be sure, but I'll explain that a little bit later. Right now, let's hit OK. Let's return something for resubmittal and do that test and be sure that our milestone actually runs. Complaint, we don't have to worry about exclude manager. Okay, I have no process notifications. If I make this form editable, yes, I do get that process notification. So now I know that the form was made editable. I now remember that there was an issue with this, and we're probably going to want to fix that so that it only happens when I make the form editable, not when I turn it off. Right now it's happening every time it clicks, but that's fine. That's a condition fix that we can do real quick. I'm going to hit resubmit. Let's see what happens. The request was returned for resubmission on, that is a square bracket, not a curly bracket. So clearly that is not going to work. Well, that at least tells me that I have a problem with my milestone that I can fix and we can retest, because if you're going to use a system variable, you have to actually use a system variable. So shift bracket gives me curly brackets. Okay, let's go back to my form. And this time I actually want to go into the milestones for the form. And I want to insert an and condition. I want to ensure that make editable is checked. So let me just add that condition real fast, because we're going to go ahead and test that again while we're on the subject, since we have to run the form anyway. So great, here's my form. It's going to be an HR action. I'm going to submit it. It's going to go to my supervisor. My supervisor is going to make the form editable. He's now going to turn the form editable off. Now it doesn't give me a separate make this form editable. It only gives me one whenever I actually make the form editable. So that milestone works. And now we're going to hit resubmit. And that milestone works as well. And there you go. There's my date as well. All right. So I've got a form milestone and I've got a process timeline milestone, both of which are working. Now, as I said, multiple ways to skin a cat. Let's go back to my milestones here. Now, I've used activity completed. There is no right or wrong way of determining how your triggers work because I can use activity started. Paste. Great. And we'll call this user resubmittal 2. And and we'll see if this works because I'm just actually making this up as I go along because this just occurred to me. Here's another way that you might prefer to do it, but we're actually going to test it and see if it works. So you and I are going to find out at the same time if this works. I'm setting this on activity started, and I only want it to run if the currently running activity happens to be the requester resubmittal. And I can actually just pick the timeline activity here. Requester resubmittal. There's my activity. And well, let me give this one as well, except this time we'll use the, okay, great. I seem to have lost what the icon was. There it is. So I had the arrow going counterclockwise. Let's have this one with the arrow going clockwise. So we'll see if this works on activity started when the running activity name is requester resubmittal. And the reason I'm doing it this way is because generally I should be skipping requester resubmittal. Let's actually see what happens, see if I get both of my milestones firing using two different triggers that ultimately should both fire more or less at the same time. They'll actually fire in sequence. But let's go ahead and do an HR action. We'll submit it and make the form editable. I'm going to stop doing that, by the way. I already know that works. No reason for me to keep delivering manful thwacks to that dead equine. Okay, great. Both worked. So I have a couple of different approaches I can take for determining when these milestone runs or when these milestones run simply by picking a different trigger and modifying the condition that I need for when that trigger occurs. The important thing to remember is that process started, activity started and complete, user completed a task, all of these conditions, they occur every time that activity occurs, right? So every activity that happens in your process timeline is going to kick off an activity started event. And when they're done, they'll all kick off an activity completed event. So unless you want your milestones to fire on every single event, which you usually don't, it's important that you set a condition so that when the trigger occurs, in this case, if it's an activity is completed and the activity result for the approval loop is resubmit, which means my last activity, I'm going to drop in the milestone, or I can use activity started. However, if I use activity started, I only want this to occur if the running activity, the activity that got started, is the requester resubmittal activity. This trigger is going to fire on every single activity whenever it starts. So I've got to specify which individual activity under which I want this to run. So I can do this milestone, either way. All that changes is the condition that I'm going to set based on the trigger that I select. But I can do the same thing multiple ways to produce these milestones in Process Director. Okay, so I've got a process timeline milestone. I've got and there are other milestones that I might want to create here. I might want to throw in what the user comments were. If there were any signature comments, I might want to throw them into a milestone. I might just want to say, for example, if I have a complaint and my supervisor says I can resolve this complaint locally, right? I might want to make a note of that as a milestone, right? So when the activity completes, and we'll put it in the same thing here, and we'll call this no HR action. Okay, and then I'll put in the department head determined that this issue could be resolved without HR action. Okay, that's straightforward enough. So when an activity completes, I want to test this. So what we'll create as our condition is we will look for whether our activity result, timeline activity result for department head approval, and we'll just say contains department. In this case, I do actually want to do department because I'm solving this at the department level. It's not going to go to HR. And so therefore, it's being resolved locally. But I want to make a note. This is a milestone. This is important to note as part of the process. The department head decided there was no reason to send this off to HR. And if I wanted to, I could probably throw in the system variable for who the department head's name was. I obviously could throw in the system variable for current date time. So I could specify exactly who the department head was, although it would generally be obvious from the context of the form anyway. But now I just want to have this noted that somebody took the responsibility to not send this to HR and to try to fix it themselves. So at the very least, we know who to point the finger at if that turns out to have been the wrong decision. So let's run it again. Let's run a complaint. We'll exclude our manager in the interest of time. We'll go to our HR, our department head. Our department head guy says, you know what? I can fix this. I can fix it. I will resolve it inside the department. Okay, my form has gone away, so I can't really see it there. So I am, in fact, going to have to, by the way, being able to access the form instances and timeline instances anywhere instantly, a big, big plus in my view. The department head determined that this issue could be resolved without HR action. This ran 3 times, and I'm not sure why it ran 3 times. So I'd need to do a little more investigating to figure out what happened with that particular milestone. And we only have 15 minutes left. And I don't think I want to waste your time with just watching me do a bunch of troubleshooting. I am going to take a quick look at it. Activity result, department head approval contains department. Okay, well, it does. for each activity. So I only want this activity completed. I think if I add an and here, I'm just guessing. And this is one of the things that you have to do sometimes with conditions is just guess. But and I don't know if this is going to work. Actually, I think I may have a simpler solution for this. Again, I'm looking at department head approval. I don't think, well, here's what's going to happen. It is going to go to the notification activity, and the parent activity will still be department head approval. So it's going to go through some more activities. So every time those activities happen, it is still going to check to see if the activity result still contains department, and it will. I only want this to fire once. So I need a condition that will enable me to just fire this once. You know what? I would have to think of that condition. Like I said, I'm not going to waste your time while you sit here watching me go through thinky pain to make this work. I think the best thing to do would just be to make it work offline. And then I can show you what the solution was next week, because, with the time we have left, it might take, 5-10 minutes for me to fix it. And that would be a waste of your time. So we're not going to do that. I'll do that offline. We have some milestones. Maybe I'll play around with some and add some more a bit later. And next week we'll start off by looking at them, and then we'll move on to where we really need to get to. Because if I open up Outlook, I've had it closed. I always close Outlook while we have these meetings. And if you look at the number of form instances that I have, and realize that I am the assignee for every activity, you can imagine the number of activity notifications I have in my mailbox. They are legion at this point, and they look like this. This is my default email template. It gives me everything I need, although I guess I didn't have task instructions for this activity, whichever one it was. So the task instructions don't show up. That's just my fault. I don't remember what activity this is from, obviously. But in any event, there we go. That is my email notification. It is super simple and not super helpful. Well, it was from here. Let me go back to my timeline. Let me just be sure that, okay, everything has instructions. Okay, well, it doesn't matter, because next week we're going to rewrite this anyway. Let me go ahead and save this just to be sure I save it. Because next week that email template is going to be irrelevant, because we are going to go into our email template, and we're going to have to fix this email template. What it gives us now is just some very simple stuff. It tells me who the email user is. It gives me a hot link to click the email URL to open up the form. And it's supposed to give me the instruction text using task instructions. Although, as I look back through here, that doesn't appear to have happened. We will figure that out a little bit later next week. This is the bare minimum of an email notification. So preview next week, what we're going to do is we're going to turn this into a multi-message email notification so that I can use one email template to send multiple notifications and to our user that actually have some useful information that they're going to want to see in terms of how the organization has responded to the request they've submitted. So this is where we're going next week to expand this email notification into something that goes beyond just, barely useful to something that actually provides some useful information both to my end user and to the participants in our process. But we're awfully close to noon, which means it's time for me to go and time for all of you to get back to your rich, fulfilling lives and stop listening to me. I appreciate the fact that you do listen to me, however, and I hope that you'll be back listening to me again next week. Until then, have a great week. So long.